In today's video, we're taking a look at some trade talk around the league. What is the latest on Nils Lundkvist with the New York Rangers? Blake Wheeler of the Jets have been stripped of the captaincy, and he and Mark Scheifele both appear to be in the dark with that move. What does this mean for the team moving forward? Will we see some trades involving some other star players? Plus, we have lots of other news around the league as well, including some news on a PTO, a big no deal for ESPN regarding some European hockey, as well as some updates on some other RFAs and items from the Vegas media availability. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at here today. First up, I want to do a correction. There was an item that was reported yesterday that's been proven to be incorrect. So we wanted to correct that here. Tyler Ennis, I reported yesterday, was signing into KHL. Well, those reports were not accurate, and Tyler Ennis himself has denied that. According to Elliotte Friedman, Ennis says he is not going to the KHL and is still currently looking for NHL work. So we'll see what happens for the future of Ennis. I would assume if he's still looking for NHL work, you would think there'd be a good chance of him getting a PTO somewhere. He's continued to produce in limited roles the last few years. So, not going to get, a big role, big contract or anything, but I still think Tyler Ennis is somebody who can play in the fourth line, give you 8 to 10 minutes a night, and still give you a decent amount of points for that limited action. But we'll see what happens, but he's still looking to try to get into the NHL. A couple more PTOs, ones that I had at least talked about. I'm not sure exactly when these were confirmed, but they were news to me. Alex Chiasson, formerly the Vancouver Canucks, as well as several other teams in the last number of years, is going to Arizona on a PTO, so he'll join the Coyotes and try to get a roster spot. That probably won't be too difficult. I know some people have joked that they should refer to that as a walk-on, not a PTO, given where he's playing in the college stadium and all that. But I think he'll have a good chance to get a job there on the roster. And Victor Rask, of course, formerly of the Hurricanes and the Wild and the Kraken, he's going to Columbus, so he'll join CBJ on a professional tryout as well. Former NHL coach Jacques Martin is back in the game as well. He's going to be working in the Ontario Hockey League at the junior level, worked the Kingston Frontenacs as a senior advisor. I kind of wonder if he'll ever try to make the jump back to the NHL. I know he's getting a little bit older, but he was always a very well-respected coach in his day, a long-time assistant in a variety of roles as well. So good for Martin to be involved in the game still. ESPN is partnered with the SHL out of Sweden to be able to broadcast some of their games. I don't know the full details, exactly how many games are going to be available and all that, but the SHL games will be available on ESPN. Obviously, the Swedish Hockey League is trying to expand their global audience. I know, especially for a lot of North American fans, that'll be great news. There's all kinds of prospects that are highly drafted and touted that typically tend to stay in Sweden for a year or two after being drafted before they come over, so it'll be easier to see, keep an eye on some of your favorite prospects that way. And there's obviously lots of great hockey, which is for some fans just great to see anyway. So if you have ESPN, you will be able to access some SHL content coming soon, so good news there. Vegas Golden Knights owner Bill Foley is reportedly in talks. It doesn't sound like he's on his own. I believe he's with a group, but he's in talks to purchase a Premier League soccer team. And obviously that's going to be an expensive venture for him. Certainly a guy who craves winning championships. We know that. He wanted to bring a Stanley Cup to Vegas as soon as possible. No indication that it's going to have any impact on his duties with the Vegas Golden Knights or anything of that nature. Certainly looking to expand what he has in the sports world for sure. The reports are that the deal could be finalized before the World Cup, so we'll have to see what happens there. But Bill Foley looking to expand his sports empire. Also, Nicholas Hague out of Vegas. Now, he is, since we're talking about Bill Foley, might as well stay with Vegas here for a moment. He's one of the remaining unsigned restricted free agents, but it doesn't sound promising that they're going to have a deal done before training camp opens. I mean, things can change quickly sometimes, but all indications are from the key NHL reporters that have the accurate info on this that Hague and the Golden Knights are still quite a ways apart on a contract. I don't know if it's more money or term. Right now, he is back in Vegas doing the informal skates like a lot of players normally do this time of year, but it's believed that by the time training camp opens, if he's still not signed, which is trending in that direction, that he very well will likely head home, which is in Ontario outside of Toronto, and he'll likely continue training closer to home. There's lots of junior teams that he could skate with and try to keep his conditioning up while he continues to get a deal. You have to think as training camps open and teams start to evaluate what they have, that they'll be calling Vegas on Hague. Now, doesn't mean Vegas wants to trade him. I can't really say right now that there's any rumors suggesting that they're leaning towards a trade since they can't get a deal done. But you know that is whenever a player's in his predicament, that those typically are things that you do eventually start to hear. And it's usually because teams are calling, trying to pry him away and see if they can give the player what the guy wants instead of the team that he's with now. Obviously, Hague is, he's 6'6", left shot defenseman, fairly young. There's lots to like about his game. I can understand why Vegas would want to keep him, but I'm certainly aware that he knows his value and doesn't want to take anything less than he feels is fair. So we'll see what happens, but that's certainly going to be one of the more interesting ones to watch. I know Jason Robertson probably going to get the biggest contract out of all the remaining guys out there, but Hague's interesting too. No real more updates on Robertson today. We talked about him in yesterday's video. There's appears to be some progress, things inching closer, but the Dallas Stars have said that they hope to have him under contract in that camp, but that's something I would expect the team to say no matter what. One more Vegas note before we move on as well. I know back a few weeks ago, there was an NHL.com article talking about the Golden Knights and the goaltending situation. Obviously, we know Robin Lehner's not there. And then once we kind of found out that Laurent Brossoit wasn't going to be there to start the year as well, there was an article we talked about one day in a video. I want to say it was a couple weeks ago. And the article just magically, even though it was focused on goaltending, had a little paragraph where it said about Mark Stone not being at training camp and not, being ready to start the year. And, we talked about that as a key point. And like, well, the team hasn't confirmed anything, but I wonder where they're getting their information. Is this right? If it is, it's big news. And Mark Stone is doing the media availability in Vegas right now on the player media tour. And that appears to be untrue. From what he said, I've seen some clips from interviews and some quotes. And Mark Stone appears like he's optimistic and ready to be able to go on day one. So that's good news for Vegas, because if they have a healthy Mark Stone and he's got his back issues corrected, that's massive, because if he can't, he's just so important to that team, especially with Pacioretty not being there anymore. If they don't have a healthy Mark Stone and then you get the goaltending woes, that team could be in trouble. But Stone reportedly will be available. Now, Nils Lundkvist and the Rangers, we talked a bit about him yesterday, indicating that there really wasn't any major updates, but it was still trending towards a trade. Of course, GM Chris Drury had made some comments, which is why I brought it up in yesterday's video, kind of acknowledging that he hoped that Lundkvist would be at camp and wasn't really, sure about the players' plans and all that. But he was asked about the trade, or the trade request, I should say, and he didn't really say a lot, just that he was hopeful that he'd come to camp. Well, now we have confirmation from his agent that he will not be going to training camp unless he is traded. Of course, which means he won't be going to Rangers camp. He'll be going to whatever camp he's traded to, if it does indeed happen during that phase of the NHL season. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's certainly not good news. I know Rangers fans were not happy to see the update on Lundkvist that he was not going to camp. So essentially, according to he and his agent, his time in New York is done. It's over. Some players just seem to take better than others and being demoted and all that. But, this is not the same situation as Vitaly Kravtsov. I know I've seen some people comparing the two, where Kravtsov didn't make the team, get cut out of camp, was wanted to be sent to the AHL, and really had a fit over it. It was like, no, I'm going back to Russia. Well, this is not the same thing. Not only is Lundkvist unlikely to make the team, but looking at the roster, he knows that it could be forever before he's going to get a chance to play with any kind of NHL regular time. I mean, he's got 3 other defensemen on the same side as him signed to, 2 out of 3 long term, and Braden Schneider getting the nod last year. I mean, Schneider is a completely different defenseman than Lundkvist, a lot bigger, stronger. Lundkvist is, a little smaller, but really good offensively. And, you're not really looking for that so much on the third pair. You want more of a bigger, stronger defensive style shutdown guy. And Schneider's a lot closer to that than Lundkvist. So he's obviously kind of moved past him and has been getting the nod at the end of last year. He was in the lineup quite regularly. So obviously he just doesn't see a path to getting into the lineup. So I don't think it's the same scenario at all. It's unfortunate that they're choosing to handle it this way. You'd like to see him maybe put the trade request in, but it's always better, in my opinion, for players to get what they want to get their trade is to be playing so teams can see them. Not being at camp is not good for him. Like, you can't really replicate the conditioning you get in camp and like preseason games, and like you can't get in game shape without games. Like, you can't simulate it close enough. It's just not possible. Any professional athlete will tell you that, and it's just unfortunate that he's going to fall behind with all that. And it's just, it's hard to say what happens. But he's not going to camp. They're kind of taking a hard stance here, and we'll have to wait and see if a trade can materialize in the near future. Now, the news out of Winnipeg was quite surprising today. We got word late this morning, and there was some media availability between Blake Wheeler and new head coach Rick Bowness this afternoon. I wanted to wait and hear all that and get a chance to kind of absorb the reaction here a little bit before we talk about it. But the captain of the Winnipeg Jets, Blake Wheeler, has been stripped of the captaincy. So he's no longer the captain as of right now. So apparently the new coach, Rick Bowness, talked to him a few days ago and made that choice. Now, I'll give you the statement here that came out from the Winnipeg Jets and took a lot of people by surprise. Essentially says that the coaching staff has determined that they don't want to have a captain this year. Blake Wheeler will no longer be serving as captain, and that they basically want to expand the leadership group. They have a lot of players in their organization that they want to kind of get more involved to be leaders, and they're going to go with a group of alternate captains this year instead of having the C and a couple A's like they traditionally have had most recently. Blake Wheeler, I believe, has been captain since 2016, I think it was. Of course, he's one of the holdovers from the Atlanta franchise going to Winnipeg. He and Mark Scheifele, I believe, are the only two players remaining with the organization from their first season back in Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele is in Vegas for the Players Media Availability Tour right now, and so of course he had to get asked about this today. Scheifele was quite shocked by it. Says that the whole room supports Blake Wheeler. Blake Wheeler, when he talked to the media, he said at first, he's had a couple of days to process this information because he was told this a few days ago. He was quite shocked and surprised at first. Obviously caught off guard. Didn't see it coming, but we heard all summer that Blake Wheeler and the Jets were working on a divorce. We heard that they had talked about finding a fresh start for him. That unfortunately his contract made it too difficult for that to happen. So he's still a Winnipeg Jets. He still has a contract for 2 more years. Now there's been so many stories, and it's hard to say what is true and what is not, because people like me and you watching this video, we're not in that room. And a lot of the reporters, even though they sometimes get access to the room, which they haven't for the past couple of years because of COVID, this year going back, media availabilities will be done in the room like they had been in the past as well. So they'll kind of get back to that. But really, for the past couple of years, there really hasn't been much of anybody really witnessing per se much of anything because of the lack of the space given and all that. So we don't really know what goes on in that room. But there's really, ever since the Patrick Laine situation and him leaving, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of speculation that Blake Wheeler is just not well liked as a captain and has created a toxic environment. Is that true? We don't know. But the fact that he didn't really see this coming, didn't know, and Scheifele didn't know. Is it possible that maybe the coaching staff and the GM maybe talked to other players on the team and they voiced their concerns for the way the leadership group was being operated and wanted to change? I mean, Scheifele seems to think that the whole team and the whole room has Wheeler's back. And, I know those two they've become quite close. They played together a long time. Not only teammates, but line mates. Good friends off the ice. So I have no doubt that they will support each other here. But it's just really kind of an odd scenario of all times. I mean, really, you think maybe they'd go through training camp. Rick Bowness obviously has not worked with this team on the ice at all. I'm sure he's talked to some of the players, but I'm sure he hasn't talked to everybody, or at least there's probably lots of players that he doesn't know well and might have had one conversation with. It just seems odd. So to me, I think a lot of that information might have been coming from Cheveldayoff. He's been there a long time. He knows this team extremely well, knows what's going on in and out. I think it's been pretty obvious from what we've been hearing for the past year or two that there is locker room issues, that I mean, I can't confirm that. Like I said, I'm not in the room, but it sure sounds like it based on everything that we've heard. And if the coaching staff, without even having been in the room on day one of the training camp, decided that they needed to make a change here, that got to be information that's been relayed to them by players they've talked to and maybe the management group. So I would think that maybe management perhaps told Bowness that, you know, they had concerns. And here we have a change. I mean, it's not something you normally hear about at this time of the season. I've seen it happen during other parts of the year, but, like, you know, usually you want to get through training camp, and then usually if there's going to be, the teams will then announce, like, you know, who's wearing the letters and all that and that type of thing. Usually they don't see a lot of change within the captaincies. Typically that happens when players leave it. Players do get stripped from time to time. It does happen. It's just not usually done quite this way. So, or for these reasons, it's just a very unique situation, but you got to think that the combination of Wheeler and Scheifele, something's got to give here. As I've been saying a few times, I already thought this team had issues with its locker room, and I thought this team was going to maybe be seeing significant change as we go through this season if they don't have a good start. I said they've already changed the coach. They've already been working on trades that never materialized. To me, if they get off to a slow start and things aren't looking good this year, I think this is one of the teams we're going to see with the most change. And I got to think that it's coming here sooner than later, that maybe Wheeler and guys like Scheifele, maybe they won't want to stick around too much after all. Hard to say, but very interesting situation. Let me know your thoughts. Did they handle this the right way? How are the Jets going to react to this? What was the right thing to do here? Let me know, and we'll talk about it in the comment section. If you're new to this channel, though, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.